Hey all, and welcome back. I've just actually now watched the new series of Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex 2045. There's a lot to offload and talk about in this video in terms of it being a no spoiler review. I remember watching the original Ghost in the Shell many years ago, and as I've said previously, I really do have to thank my very good long-time friend, my brother from another mother, Adrian. He in fact introduced me to the world of anime and manga at the time, back when we were growing up. And Ghost in the Shell was one of those in particular gems that he did introduce me to very, very early on. I was very enamored by that original Mamoru Oshii film, and all the visual style and the flair it brought at the time, and how it was in fact a precursor for the Wachowskis to go on to use loads of the elements from that core manga and film for their grandiose sci-fi epic, The Matrix, and its preceding Animatrix and sequels. So how does 2045 stand up? Well, it's very, very good. It's not going to be for everyone. The team behind this is a lot of the designers, directors, and producers of the Ultraman Netflix TV show that we got about a year ago. And in fact, fun enough, one of the trivia things from IMDb actually relates to the fact that they were actually offered Ghost in the Shell first, initially as a sort of concept to do from Masume, the manga rights holders to Ghost in the Shell, but then were actually offered then Ultraman by Netflix to do first. So they kind of ended up doing them the other way around, in fact. So here we are now, finally, with Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex 2045. This has really, really got a lean amount of information and pacing to a lot of it. It's 12 episodes. They're coming in at around sort of 22, 24 minute mark if you don't kind of count on the intros and the outros and stuff. But I do definitely recommend checking those out, at least on the first viewing. I was definitely caught off guard by the intro to this show. The song being Fly With Me, which I swear you will be humming every time you now think about Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex 2045. It really had me hooked right from the get-go. It's a beautiful sort of reimagining of the intro title sequence from the first movie done, where you see Major Kusanagi go through her sort of cybernetic implants and sort of set up for her to be a synthetic, a cyborg in this world. And it also really got me thinking a lot about what's to come with the awesome looking Cyberpunk 2077 coming out later this year across all gaming platforms, hopefully in September time. But that was a wonderful surprise. It had me hook, lined right in, and straight away I was texting my friends telling them that you've got to check this out. How does it stand up to Standalone Complex, which we have from 2002? I'm still early doors on that, only because, like I said, this is the first 12 episodes. That had 2 seasons to establish itself, and several movies that they did thereafter based off of that series. There was The Laughing Man, there was the Standalone Complex Society, there was numerous other ones as well that came thereafter. But with this, it's very much set between, you've got a very big story arc at the opening. You see, I'm trying to keep it spoiler free as possible. Suffice to say, this is a new sort of Cold War, in fact. So they talk about a sustainable war. So America has plunged back into a civil war in the future time that we find ourselves set in 2045 for this show. And there are lots of powers at play that are trying to keep this going for as long as possible, so they can keep arming other sides of the nations and different sort of splinter groups to keep funneling money through that chain of commerce to keep this going. So you kind of got Metal Gear Solid vibes there as well, which is kind of sneaky but very, very cool. And there's loads of awesome mecha, and I'm so happy that the Touchkomos, the little think tanks that we've had throughout the series, make a very, very good impact on this show. They are your chorus. They're much like kind of Shakespeare's day, where you had kind of like the smaller players helping to recite to the audience kind of what happened, and also in Akira Kurosawa movies when you've kind of got the lowly peasant sort of smaller characters, sort of our sort of point of view, from our as point of view of the audience, basically, as to what's kind of happening. And they offer this kind of wonderful, delightful glee, like they did, just like in the films, and also in the Standalone Complex series from the early 2000s, whereby they have lots of fun kind of making jests, but also they want to be in on the action as much as the main tier characters like Bato and the Major and the Chief and Sato. So that's always good to see them back here shining bright, and they really do quite early on in these opening episodes. So in amongst that, while this is going off, we learn that Section 9 is in fact disbanded, so that does follow on from what we had before with the prior series. So in its own way, it is a continuation of the timeline, but in many ways it's also an adaptation because it's taking from the manga and the other source materials, but at the same time it is its own thing as well, hence the standalone kind of complex element of the tagline, like we did in the originals series, so I should say. So with that, you kind of delve deeper into sort of Japanese society as well later on. And we also get this idea of the post-humans. This is something new for the series, but was also, again, taking elements from the other source material about kind of what happens kind of beyond the life of a synthetic, basically going back or rehabilitated into society. And I thought this is really where the show starts to shine its brightest. Episode 7 in particular, Pie in the Sky, where it's a bank job. The first it is announced, in fact, that's happened in 25 years in Japan, where someone's actually attempted to rob a bank, and you get to see that through the eyes of Bento, and it is so funny and so good. You know, I'm trying to really stretch my mind back because I know there was an episode in the Standalone Complex series from 2000s where it did also involve a group of sort of elderlies and sort of living out their fantasies in what was seemingly a dream world and then kind of waking up from it. This has hallmarks and harkens back to that, but it is also its own standoff episode and story, which is fantastic. And then later on in episode 10, similar to this, we kind of get insight from what it's like to be at school during this time. And it's the Net People episode, and that is ramping up for what will be probably, I imagine, the second half of this series, because like I said, this is the first 12. There's also a very, very prophetic catch at the beginning of the first episode, you'll notice. So in fact, as you're watching the episodes, they do say that obviously at the moment it is only available in its native Japanese language with the subtitles. That being because of the current climate, they weren't able to finish the pending dubs, but they are coming. So if you want to kind of hold off and prefer to listen to it in kind of its English translation, that will be possible later on. But for now, you'll have to obviously view it in its Japanese format. But don't let that take away from your enjoyment. If you can watch it with the subtitles, I encourage you to do so. The voice acting is very good across the board. The translation, for the most part, I feel is very good. I was able to follow it very easily in amongst kind of having lunch, doing little things, keeping my eye on the episodes as well. So it's very good. It's also fantastic for its music as well. Like I said, the opening intro song, the outro song, there's use of jazz, there's soft rock, there's lots of orchestral, very kind of filmic, atmospheric music. It's brilliant. It's almost, I'd say, a soundtrack I'd want to get later on, actually, at some stage as well. It flows wonderfully, and because of that, you're glued to the action as it happens, and the episodes themselves are very interesting, and lots of use of technology, as always, and how specialization can inflict cause or sort of cause problems within society, as well as solve things that we're trying to make more convenient for ourselves. Hence the reason for there being a Section 9 within the police department, as you see in these episodes and throughout the manga. So please do check it out. Let me know what you think. I'm definitely eager to see more of this. This is a very good introduction. There were almost points as well with the new 3D sort of animation style. I feel like with this now, we're getting ever so closer to that kind of... It's still a cel-shaded look like we've seen before, but there are times where I'm almost blinking and almost believing it's going to that sort of animation state now. How ironic, isn't it, that animation was absolutely phenomenal in the 80s, 90s, and now we're going back to a time where we're using more computer effects to make it look as good as the animation, which sounds kind of funny. It's almost like, well, why don't we just use the animation? Well, this, as you've seen from other original Netflix sources and productions, it's freeing up the animators to do so much more, to tell more vivid stories and to go deeper and more complex with the detail. I mean, the use of the structures in this show, for example, when we see the detailing of the rubble and the destruction, there's very early on sort of images of fighting and conflict. And when they come in on the buildings and the destruction, you'll be amazed to see the level of detail. And that's another thing, actually, I must point out. If you can see this in 4K, I imagine it must be absolutely phenomenal, because it's really going in tight on much of kind of how the graphics for this have advanced through 3D modeling and effects, basically. Huge shout to the animators as well as the production team and staff that worked on this. It looks gorgeous, but I do believe, yes, if you can see it in a 4K presentation, do so as well if you can. For myself, I've seen it in 1080p. It looked good, it sounded good, but I imagine with that extra oomph behind it, it will probably feel even beefier and fantastic. So that's my thoughts and opinions so far, and initial review of Standalone Complex 2045 for Ghost in the Shell. Please let me know if you've seen it. Do check it out. I'd love to hear feedback as always, and please do continue to be excellent to each other and stay safe during these times of uncertainty. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Do check it out. It's available now, the full, initial 12 episodes of season 1. That's Ghost in the Shell, Standalone Complex 2045. Well, thank you for now, and hope to see you all soon. Bye for now.